first one that I did, because I needed one in a hurry, was when I was a graduate film student at UCLA. I had written, purely on spec, on speculation, a two-part Star Trek story, just for my own enjoyment and for a class assignment. I got an A. And I submitted it to Paramount, to Norway Productions, which was Gene Roddenberry's production company. I got a very nice letter back saying, we really like your story. Please resubmit it for the 4th season. No 4th season. So I had this 2-hour screenplay sitting around, and I thought, well, I can just adapt that, and that'll take care of book number 7 right off the bat. And it worked out quite well. Many years, well, not many years, time goes by, and I get a call from Paramount saying Gene Roddenberry is preparing to revive Star Trek as a television series. Well, I had been following, I was still living in Los Angeles at the time, I've been following the developments in the history of Star Trek all along, like most science fiction fans. And one year they're going to make a movie, and the next year they're going to revive the TV series, and one year they're going back and forth and back and forth. The apocryphal story is that the 10-year-old daughter of Charles Bluhdorn, who was the president of Gulf and Western, which was the conglomerate that owned, among other things, Paramount Studios, went up to her father after Star Wars and Close Encounters of the Third Kind had come out and said, Daddy, why can't we have a Star Trek movie? Now, I don't know if that's true or not, but it's a story that exists in Hollywood. You wonder how things get made in Hollywood, how multi-million-dollar movies get made? So the word came down to Norway Productions, which had at least half a dozen scripts in production as proposed episodes of the revised TV series. Hey, we're not going to do the TV series again. We're going to do a big budget movie because Star Wars made money and Close Encounters of the Third Kind made money. So everybody at Paramount and Norway starts running around thinking, how can we get this thing started? Because movies, once they're in production, they acquire a momentum of their own. Roddenberry's people had brought in a number of writers to submit story ideas for the proposed revised TV series. I was one of them because I had done 10 Star Trek books, and they knew that I was familiar with the Star Trek universe. I had submitted 3 treatments, as they're called. Treatment is basically a synopsis of a movie. When you see the credit on screen, it says story by, and then it'll say screenplay by. The story is the treatment. That's the technical term for what it is in Hollywood. It's basically the film without any dialogue, without any action described. It's a short version of the film. I had submitted 3 of those for the proposed revised television series. One of them was based on a two-page story idea of Roddenberry's called Robots Return. He'd given it to me and said, see if you can make anything out of this. They had decided that they were going to open the revived TV series with a 2-hour movie for TV. My story was chosen. They said, go home and make this adequate to carry 2 hours of television instead of 1 hour. Now the word comes down from on high at Paramount, we're going to give you a big budget and we're going to make a big budget Star Trek movie. Well, having been disappointed before, and again, I don't know exactly what happened because I wasn't there, but I'm supposing, and based on what other people have said who were there, everybody starts running around frantically at Norway Productions thinking, we've been through this for years and years and years, through different regimes at Paramount. What have we got that we can show them right away, that we can say, here's our story idea, let's draw up a budget. The only one that was prepared to carry 2 hours was my story. We had a big story conference with, it was Michael Eisner, I think, was the head of Paramount at the time, and Eisner read my treatment, and he said, this is our Star Trek movie. Right? That's a piece of historical record, even though I wasn't there. So I got the word, your treatment has been accepted as the basis for, we're going to do a big budget movie, and then written in invisible ink, nice knowing you. This is the way Hollywood works. When it was a television show, it wasn't such a big deal. It became a big budget movie, suddenly there's a lot of money, there's a lot of ego involved, and I became an instant non-person. So I, having grown up sort of around the business, my uncle, Howie Horowitz, was a very successful producer in television. He did 77 Sunset Strip. He was the producer of that Batman on TV. He produced that. He loved science fiction. He just never really got a chance to do it. So I was familiar with how the business worked. So I, threw up my hands. We were living in Big Bear Lake at the time. And I said, okay, that's nice. I'll have a story credit on a big movie. They don't want me to work on the screenplay, fine. And I sent him a letter and I said, okay, I understand. If you need my input or my help, I'm happy to give it. Well, this was very naive of me. You never offer anything for free in Hollywood. They're immediately suspicious of you. It's like, what does this person really want? So I never got so much as a phone call. I never got invited to the set to watch the shooting. And it was like, fine, I'm busy writing my books. I have other things to do. Months and months and months go by, and the film is almost ready to be released. And what happens before a film is released is that the various creative participants review the credits. The actors, everybody right down to the dog handler and the caterer, to make sure that their credit is correct. So out come the writing credits. It says, story by Gene Roddenberry, screenplay by Gene Roddenberry and Harry Livingston. So I'm looking at this, wait, this isn't right. So I called my agent, who was an old line agent named Ilse Lahn, who had come over from Germany as part of the German diaspora before World War II, German creative film people who came to the United States. And I said, my name's not on the credits. I said, I wrote 95% of the treatment. Where is my name? She said, don't get excited. She said, this is just the way the business works. I said, they filed their credits, now we'll file our credits, and the guilds, each guild will decide who really deserves what credit. And I said, well, it's not the way I work. I said, if they're going to do this, I said, I'm going to file for sole story credit, and I can prove it to the guild or anyone else. And she said, okay, that's what we'll do. So we filed for sole story credit on the movie. Meanwhile, I'm walking around the house, you can see the steam coming off the top of my head. And my wife, Joanne, who's, again, from the small town in Texas, very low-key, looks at me one day, and she says, you sure you want to live here to be near these people? And I'd grown up in L.A., I thought I'd lived in L.A. my whole life. And I thought about it, and I said, because she didn't like L.A., and she didn't like the movie business. I thought about it, and I said, you know what, let's go find some place we both like, and I'll write my books, and nobody will bother me. And we moved to Prescott. That was in 1980. Livingston, the screenwriter, who I later find out is the guy who sabotaged me in the first place. But that's just the way the business works. And he said, look, just because Roddenberry's being a son of a bitch doesn't mean that you should be too. And I thought about it, and I said, you know what? So I called my agent back. I said, you're right. I said, call my agent back. I said, let's just do it the way it originally was. I had seen copies of the shooting script. This is the script the actors carry around with them on the set to know their lines. It's got my name on it. Story by Alan Foster and Gene Roddenberry. Excuse me. It's better than water. So she said, whatever you want. My agent said, and we did that. A little more time passes, and I get a call from Ilse, from my agent. She said, I just got a call from Roddenberry's people. They actually talk like that in Hollywood. Everybody has people. You take meetings and you have people. It's a real strange take on the English language. So Roddenberry is in La Costa recovering from overwork, and he can't be bothered with things like this. And I threw up my hands and I told my wife, I said, I'm dealing with a bunch of 10-year-old boys playing ball out in the street. Somebody has the ball and they're unhappy and they take their ball and go home. I said, this is ridiculous. We'd already made the decision to leave the LA area. And I told my agent, I said, look, whatever. I was at that point. And that's why I have sole story credit on the movie. Because Roddenberry was in La Costa and couldn't be bothered. The reason these things are important is because, particularly at the creative end, director, actors, producer, writers, depending on how your credit reads, whether you're story by just you or somebody else, screenplay by you or somebody else, there's money involved. And the guilds are very, very specific about this and very protective of this. Depending on whether you're in first position or second position, whether it says screenplay by you and somebody else or somebody else and you, may determine tens of thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars, depending on whether or not the movie's successful. So it's very important. It's not just a matter of seeing your name in a certain position on the screen. I'll give you an example. my percentage of the profits of the film on those rare Hollywood films that make movies, make profits, and I can tell you a story about that from a friend in a minute. I had like, I don't know, a quarter of 1.3% of the producer's grosses, some infinitesimal amount. This was in addition to the flat fee that I was paid for the writing job. Every time a clip from that Star Trek, from the original Star Trek movie is shown on television, whether it's 20 seconds on Entertainment Tonight or 10 seconds in a commercial, I get something. It might be $5, it might be $10, but you think about it. Suppose you got like 2% of a movie's profits in a successful movie. That doesn't just mean you get 2% of the profits from the theater receipts. You get 2% of the profits every time anything from that film is shown. Never mind if it's shown on HBO or TV Land or any place else. That's why people who are involved with a successful film or successful television series never worry about money again. Because the money keeps coming to the end of time. So, one example, and then we'll take more questions. One example I want to give you, a friend of mine who tried for years to break into the movies as a producer, spent a lot of years sleeping on his mother's couch in her apartment on Hollywood Boulevard. It's a man named Ron Shusett, who I know from my college days. Ron later went on to become producer of Total Recall, the first one, Alien. Ron, very successful. Ron had, as producer of Alien, a pretty big percentage of any potential profits. Years went by, 20th Century Fox said, this film hasn't made any money. The most creative people, it's an old joke, the most creative people in Hollywood are the accountants. Years went by. Alien hadn't made any money. Promotion costs, print costs, overseas promotion costs. The LA Times decided to do an investigative piece on creative Hollywood accounting. Three-part report that ran in the calendar section of the LA Times. And the film they chose as an example was Alien. 2 weeks after the first installment came out in the Times, Ron got a check for $250,000. And this is back in the early 80s. So, very creative people, the accountants. Okay, let's in the back, and then we'll come back to the front.
I wanted to talk a little bit about the characters in your books, in the writing.
I almost forgot about Splinter.
You know, given the Star Trek books that you've written, the Star Trek stories, and the Star Wars movies, in each universe, do you have a favorite character, and if so, who is it and why?
I've written a lot of original novels, a lot of original books. I have my own universes. My favorite characters in all of them, in mine, in Star Trek, in Star Wars, are always the people who solve problems by thinking them through reason and logic. This is one of the reasons Star Trek has always been so popular, and it's one of the main criticisms against the reboot. So instead of thinking things through and solving things with logic and reason, people are just shooting at each other. In my books, in one of my creative universes, is a character named Zuzix, who is an intellectual, basically member of an insectoid race. In Star Wars, it would be Obi-Wan. In Star Trek, who would it be? Come on.
Mr.
Thank you, Spock. I'm always in favor of logic and reason as opposed to blowing things up. It doesn't make for as exciting film. It's when we talk about the advance of technology and what bothers you in science fiction as far as the technology in films. And I see people on starships typing commands into computers. Nobody's going to be using keyboards in 50 years, never mind in 200 or 300 years. What you'll either talk directly to the computer, which at least works in film, or more likely, you'll have some kind of a device that fits on top of your head, like a baseball cap, and you'll think at the computer. And that's how you communicate. But 12 people sitting around in a room thinking at the ship's computer makes for really dull filmmaking.